Hello. Are we on? Yes, we're on.
Am I?
Are you on?
Hello.
Sorry, we're doing our mic test in front of you all.
1, 2, 3.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We were just saying how much we love this venue, and it's a real booky treat to have you all here. So you all know who Dawn is, Dawn O'Porter. She's multiple-time award-winning, best-selling author of The Cows, which you might have all read a few years ago now, but brilliant book. So Lucky, the new book that we're going to talk about today, which is equally as fantastic.
Has anybody read it?
Has anyone read it here yet? Ooh, okay, got a few. We're doing a no spoilers today. Also some of my favourite YA books, and you've also just written a musical.
Well, the first draft of a musical, yes. Yeah.
A podcaster, and also funniest person on Instagram.
Thank you.
Are we all, yeah!
It's so weird that that's a thing. Thank you.
So you've had quite the jam-packed day today, talking about So Lucky. How's it been so far?
It's been amazing. Did anyone hear Chris Evans this morning?
Yes.
It was so weird. When you go and do these like press weeks, you'll go to the radio stations and you go around and you're like one of probably 5 people that's getting interviewed over the course of that show. So no one has generally read the book. They get like a cheat sheet where they get the highlights and then they try and do an interview with you and glaze over and then they just get the next person in. That's what I was expecting this morning from Chris Evans. He was like, I love this book! My wife read it! My brother-in-law read it! I read it! I want to option the TV rights right here on air! And I was just like, what's happening? So that was the start. So I think it's whatever happens now.
That is, and the fact that happened at 8 a.m. Like,
it was unbelievable.
Like, you're up for a good day.
I always really loved him as well. I don't know what it is about him, but I've always had a bit of a crush on him. I just think, you know when him and Billy were just going out having the time of their lives, and you're just like, oh God. But they're just in the pub all day, just having so much fun. I just thought, what a great boyfriend. And actually, it's not far from great.
I'm gonna nod. I have my weird crushes, but
who?
Are we going there? Yeah. No, we'll move on.
Okay.
Ricky Gervais. Like when he hadn't lost weight as well. Anyway, so you build the most amazing 3D characters. You did it in The Cows. You've done it in your other books. You've done it again. Ruby and Beth and Lauren are these incredible women who I felt close to, but they're also wild and interesting. I'm just going to ask you a question on characters first, because I feel like that's what you're so good at. How do you build these women? Because I've heard these stories of like people building Spotify playlists and getting into their heads, but how do you do that?
God, do people do that?
Apparently.
It's really impressive.
Maybe one person.
This is the first book where I've gone so beyond myself. I feel like everything I've written before has just been an element of me that I have fictionalized. And this was the first one where I fully researched these characters and went well beyond me. Ruby was, I was at a friend's hen do, and this woman started talking to me, and as soon as I saw her in the room, I was like, I just have to talk to this woman. She was like very slim and kind of, I don't know, she just looked like a fucking bitch, and I just loved it. She had like this kind of high-necked dress on that she'd made herself clearly, but really well, like puffy shoulders, and she had a really deep voice, and I was just like, she was so fabulous. I know she's got a story, and it kind of gravitated towards her. And it turns out in the book, Ruby has a physical condition that is really holding her back in life. It's aesthetic, and she thinks she's disgusting, and it's what she battles with all the time. Anyway, this woman at this hen do was telling me she had this condition. And she was very funny in the way that she talked about it, and she'd kind of overcome it and found a solution for it. And but I just couldn't believe that this person had kind of battled with this thing her whole life, and the way that she was so open. And so anyway, I got her number, and I interviewed her at length to kind of draw the character of Ruby. And nothing about Ruby's life is the same as hers, but she just helped me understand what it's like to live with something like that, overcome it. And so I felt, when you do that level of interview and you start your character there, you've got so much to work with. Everything else is just icing. And that was awesome. And actually, that woman is called Clara, and she reads the part of Ruby on the audiobook. She's very open about everything. And which just makes me feel so gooey inside. I just think that's so cute. And Beth, I can't remember where the original idea came from Beth, Beth has just had a baby, and her husband just will not have sex with her. I kind of love that dynamic. I think women are always considered the ones who kind of pull back sexually after having babies, and I think very often the guys do. And so I asked on Instagram, and I don't know if anybody here replied, there's a few nods, if anyone replied to me. My inbox was inundated for days of women talking about that feeling of when their partner loses interest in them intimately. And I think as women, we're kind of brought up to think men want to have sex with us. And so when the man that you love doesn't want to, it's very confusing. So that was the beginning of Beth. And I mean, basically what I learned, it's a really good idea to really research characters. It really helps. And it was so much easier to write when I wasn't just trying to draw from my own experiences.
That's really interesting, because I think not that the assumption that female writers always write about themselves and their friends is like, it is annoying.
It is
it's not true.
It kind of was until now, but yeah,
but
it
it's
is
a
annoying.
whole other thing.
Yeah.
But talking about Ruby, so this isn't a spoiler, this is just a background of who she is. But she obviously has this condition, she's physically quite insecure at times, but her job is to Photoshop people. Like she works in that sort of industry.
Very successful.
I thought that was quite relatable on a kind of bigger scale, that a lot of people, and me included, and I don't know if anyone here, but sometimes you do things that morally you're like, this actually isn't 100% maybe lined up. And maybe this was, when you're younger as well, and you kind of need the money, like you need to do the job. I found that dynamic really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird thing for her because essentially she's a photo retoucher and does really, really well at her job and gets paid a good amount of money. And the reason she does this job is because she can work alone from her house and not be seen by anybody. But she is perpetuating the problem that we all have with ourselves, because we look at this perfection that's out there, and she knows how much that hurts. I think I'm morally corrupt in my head so badly, and always contradicting myself on everything. That's why I kind of sometimes, I've said something quite vocal and political or feminist on Instagram and then do the exact opposite a week later. It's very hard to be good and perfect and stick by things. It's hard.
It's why that Guilty Feminist podcast is so popular.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
You're just like, I don't care about aging, and I want to look all wrinkly when I'm older because that's feminist, and then it's just like spending £100 on a moisturiser.
Yeah.
Etc.
That's literally me.
That's me. Every day it's a struggle. So I want to talk about motherhood in the book. It's obviously a really big part of the book. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anyone read Dawn's Times piece. If not, go back and read it. You wrote a first-person piece about toddlers.
Yeah.
Ruby and Beth are both mothers, but I wanted to ask you about their mothers in the book.
Yeah.
Or Lauren's mother and also Ruby's mother. They're not very nice.
No, I mean, I think all of my books will always involve a complicated relationship with mothers, because my mum died when I was quite young. So it's not that I had a bad relationship with her, but I just don't have that relationship in my life. So I remember being at school, and I've said this so many times when I've done interviews, or being at university when we're all living away from home. And I remember my friend, she would say, when she got sad, she would say, I just want to call my mum. And I was like, what the fuck do you want to call your mum for? Like, grow up, man up. Like, what do you need? I didn't understand that relationship of having that person there. So, to try and not always just write about absent dead mums, it comes out of me in these really kind of complex relationships that my characters have with their mothers. Because I just don't really understand that thing.
That's really interesting, because the characters in the book, the kids gravitate towards the dads a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, see, I love my dad. And he was alive, which just helps. I guess they do.
That a lot in books sometimes.
That was kind of weird and dark and funny all at once. I also am very aware of, when you're writing books about strong women, to have good men in the mix. I think it's something that's very easy to slip into, and I've definitely edged towards it in other stuff that I've done. Is while you're raising women up, just careful not to put the guys down. So the guys might not be the most fascinating characters. They might not be the backbone to a woman's existence, but they can still be good people. And there's something about the dad in this book, and Ruby lost her dad, the way that she talks about him is just this amazing guy. Doesn't really need to be a part of the story or be in it for there just to be a positive male character there.
And so, Michael's not a good man, really, in terms of the way he is, but he's the house husband, isn't he? I wondered, did you want to move away from stereotypes in the book, or it wasn't like your mission to be kind of gender neutral with that?
Well, I think if I was really honest, and I don't know how conscious this decision is, I guess my male characters, I think, are kind of the way that female characters have been in movies and books forever. I remember at the time when I wrote The Cows, did anyone read The Cows? Do you know what I'm talking about? So Jason, the guy that Tara falls in love with, some people would like, men who interviewed me would be like, oh, but Jason's like this drippy guy, he's, you know, and I was like, he's a lovely person who's desperate for love and babies. That's been every woman in every Hollywood movie for the last 50 years, and you think that he's like, I've done him an injustice. So I think sometimes when you just write women being male and stereotypically and men being female, it feels a bit off, but obviously both men and women can behave those ways in real life.
Yeah, because Beth is a career, you know, she's the breadwinner, she's really successful, and she loves sex, and it's like the people around her she can feel unlikable by that.
Yeah. Well, I think this is another thing about the book which I love about it, is that both my main females are females. David Attenborough documentary. Both of the two main women and Lauren you have to really try to like them. But I think what I really like writing, something that I get a real kick out of, and when I've kind of got to the end of the book, if I pull this off, I really like, these characters do really questionable things that you think are wrong and that you would judge them for, but hopefully my job is to have got you on board with why they did it and justify why Beth does some pretty terrible things. But I think when you read it, you'll understand why she gets pushed to do that. And as I feel like when I've got to the end, that's the main thing that I'm trying to make sure that I've balanced. When you read this scene where this character's gone and, you know, done something that you would, you know, dump your best friend over or just be so upset about, were you on board with her when she was doing it? And hopefully, yes.
Yes, and you did that so well in The Cows and this book, because it's true. I think it's really boring in a way when people just do good person versus bad person. It's like, no, good people do bad things all the time. And that I love that nuance. So my next note I've written down is sex in capitals, exclamation mark, just because it's really fun to read those scenes. And I've never really written a sex scene in a fictional sense. How is that? Is it fun? How do you write them?
I love it. Like, I love writing sex scenes, and because I work in a shared workspace. When I was writing, one of my friends thought I was reading a sexy email when I was writing a sex scene. I was like this going, whatever my weird writing sex faces. And she's like, God, who just emailed you? What are you reading? And I was like, oh, I just wrote such a good sex scene. And then I'll text all my friends going, oh, it's so good. It's just so good. It puts me in such a good mood. I don't know. I love writing, but I have no, like, it's quite hard writing about sex because it has to be like, you can't write Hollywood sex. Like, I try not to do that, but it's hard because you want your reader to be really satisfied by it. But at the same time, it's like, you know, he lay on top of me and I came within 10 seconds. So you've got to get into it for it to be believable. And I really, really get upset when a book promises me a sex scene and I start it and it just kind of skims over the top.
I know. I was really happy because they're like it's pages.
I want the juice and the noises and all of it.
I mean, it's beautifully written.
Thanks.
But it's also really funny. There's a character in the book called Risky, who is the kind of colleague of Beth. And the way she talks about sex, it's just fun. Your book is so fun.
Thank you.
I just loved reading it.
Yay.
Because I think in a previous interview, actually, when we spoke, you said success for you as a novelist is someone finishing the book and finishing it quite quickly, getting through it.
Yeah.
And that is just what you're so good at.
Well, I find reading really hard, ironically. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. I used to read loads, and now I get into bed with a book and then just suddenly find myself sitting up and fast asleep. It's really difficult at this time in my life to get through a book. So I just need stuff that is really like page turner and keeps me going. And so I'm conscious of that when I write. I think, you know, the age that I am, I've probably got a lot of mums with young children reading my books. I'm like, what's the book that they, you know, they'll be able to get through when they've just got half an hour before they pass out at night? And try to make the most of every page as well. Like, you know, I just like fast pace. So I think when I'm writing, I'm like, they'll read that in 30 seconds. They'll get through that chapter really quickly. That was really speedy, and then just slow down a little bit here and speed it up again, do it then. And I love all that. I love the pace of it.
Yeah, the pacing's everything. And the fact that you can swap between the characters, that to me is always kind of quite gripping, because you always want to know what the other person's doing.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I know you said that this is a topic that comes up a lot in terms of the book, and it's not just the main theme, but it talks about Instagram perfection a lot. It's very funny because I think we all know here those posts where you see them and you're like, that's not very, like you're trying to be authentic, like too much.
Yeah.
There's a post where this Lauren, who is the kind of Instagrammer of the book, she's a famous kind of influencer, she would be like hashtag mental health, hashtag anxiety, hashtag Veuve Clicquot.
Yeah.
And those bits are great.
I honestly, doing the there's every couple of chapters, there's an Instagram post that I would kind of describe what she's doing in the photo and put her caption and then write comments underneath, and writing the comments was just
so funny,
so good.
Because it's like trolls and super fans kind of interweaved.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly there, but there's something along the line of, you get, oh my God, I'm your biggest fan, you're so pretty, so happy for you and Gavin, so glad you're getting married, and then someone would just say, put your flange away. It's just, because that's genuinely what Instagram is like. I wish I'd written that one. I was like, yeah. People just have no barriers, so they just write these things, and sometimes you're like, oh my God, like that's your reaction to what I've just posted, and it's so funny. Like when they're saying it to you in real life, it's so hurtful. When you get to write and make them about someone else, it kind of made me understand how a troll feels. It's quite fun.
Also, all of the usernames were cracking me up. Was that quite fun? Just
so fun. I mean, people's usernames. I mean, I'm Hot Patooties. It's Meatloaf's song in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and when Twitter started, didn't I just use my name? Like, we didn't realise. I remember being in the kitchen with Chris, and I was like, I've just joined this thing called Twitter. He was like, oh yeah, I heard of that. And I was like, call myself Hot Patooties. I was like, all right, cool. He's like, I call myself Big Boiler. I was like, right, great, cool.
And you still have them.
And then suddenly it's like Hot Patooties, a Big Boiler, like that's normal.
But it's like in the early noughties, it was really normal to have a Hotmail, which was like Fluffy Chicken 99. And I would send my CV out with that.
I know.
For a while.
I know. There are some people who still use those emails. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that kind of Lauren popping up, even though we don't really see her kind of as a first person necessarily, she's there. And actually, I guess we get to see the real her in the end.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Instagram just in general?
I mean, for me personally, I love it because I just don't take it very seriously. And, you know, I mean, I'm very lucky. My entire career has been about being myself. So even when I was on TV, like it was about body image. It was about being me. I've never had any pressure on me to be thin, prettier, anything than I am. So I'm a very kind of unique situation in terms of being in the public eye. I actually think I would have kind of, if I was like really beautiful, would probably not have done so well. But you know, in that kind of
I would argue that.
Well, I mean, in that kind of, if I'd have gone really for the perfectly toned long hair and like the kind of look of like what you think someone on TV needs to look like, or what I always thought you needed to look like, just didn't need to do it, didn't do it. So, and look at the people who are really successful and who worked and who's been around for ages. They all made that decision to be themselves, didn't they? So I feel in terms of Instagram, it's just an extension of that. I mean, one thing that I never liked about being on TV, and my agent's here and she just hates when I do this, I'm so sorry, but I never liked about like the editing process. And I would do my job and I'd think that I'd said one thing, and then so many other people have interfered with my job by the time you see it on the television, which is fine and it makes a good entertaining TV show, but I hated being edited. I really hated it, which is why writing books is so good for me, because I've got 300 pages to just say what I want to say, and then Kimberly will correct my spelling and other things. But largely it's advice and guidance rather than, you know, editing what I have to say. And Instagram is that. Like, apart from one time where I tweeted something about Posh Bites clitoris when someone got really cross with me and told me to take it down, which, between us, I don't know why I said it, but I said it, and someone said, I think maybe you should take that down. And then I really resented that later. But that's the only time that anyone's ever tried to limit what I should say on Twitter and Instagram. And for someone like me, who obviously has no editor in my head, it's very liberating. There's a lot of people in the public eye who speak through their PRs, who are kind of very controlled about what they say, who are worried all the time about, if I say that, do you think that's okay? I couldn't care less. If I get into trouble for something that I say, I'll take it. Like, I'll deal with that. I think I'd take that risk, but it's just great to be unedited. So I love it. I feel like I've got my own TV channel.
I mean, that's why it's so great.
It's brilliant.
And that's why we need it. That's why we need you and Chris doing karaoke at 3 a.m.
Sometimes he's like, you didn't. I did, sorry. The pepper snorting was a highlight, I think. But yeah, no,
I think that's
it's
the
great.
sign of true confidence, though, when you wake up and you do some Instagram stories and you're like, I'm not going to delete those.
There was once.
They're entertaining.
There was once. No, and most of the time it's fine, but I do think I need to be like, just not do it when I'm drunk. Although, who saw the one with my sister in Guernsey? Oh my God! Honestly, I thought I'd kept it, but it's gone. Maybe I just took it down eventually. But there's just moments like that are just like, that's never going to be on TV. Like someone's like that kind of hour-long belly laugh, which is basically what we did. Anyway, I love it. My relationship with it is incredibly positive.
What I love about you, though, is that you will actually do something like really quite swanky and you won't post about it, yet you'll post you and your sister rolling around in your home bed.
Yeah, that's actually quite true. Because it's full of that, isn't it? Like, look at my great life going to this great thing. We all know that Chris and I go to things like that. It's not actually that interesting. I don't think anyone cares about that kind of stuff. I'd much rather do like my stupid makeup tutorials while I'm getting ready to go to the Oscars. It's way more interesting, I think, than the actual Oscars. But yeah, I love it. I mean, it's dangerous for me. I'm hugely overexposed.
But you're still in control, and which is a good feeling of putting out what you want to put out. So I wanted to ask you just, how has this whole experience been different to when you brought the cows out? Oh
God, so different. So when I wrote the cows, I just had Art, who is now 4.5, and I was running my business, which is a lovely skirt here, and I loved that business so much, but financially it was an absolute fucking disaster. And it was so stressful, and it was me and an assistant who ran everything. And if any of you ever wrote to customer services, then it was probably me who replied with a fake name. Like it was really, really, really hard work. And I launched it when I was 7 months pregnant, on the same day that I signed a 2-book deal with HarperCollins, and we'd just also moved to America. The timing of it all was awful, and it was just I was so determined to do it. And I, after Art, it was just so stressful, and I also had the deadline of the cows. And we were also moving to New York for 4 months for a job for Chris, and I was just so overwhelmed. Really, the most stressful thing in my life was my baby. I was absolutely loving it. I was loving being with him, and all of these other things, work, was just so stressful. Which is why when I was about 8 months pregnant with Valentine, I just decided to close the business. I didn't want to do that again. So the cows was just a really stressful writing experience. I was living in an apartment in the West Village in New York, which sounds fabulous, and it was. It's just around the corner from where Carrie Bradshaw lived. And I was upstairs. It was an Airbnb, but it was a writer who lived there, and he had this little kind of office and with a desk. And I'd go up into the little desk, and it wasn't my bottom. And I would write my novel like this. But I was like, Art was probably about 4 or 5 months, and I just started getting childcare for the first time. Just kind of found a local babysitter of like 2 hours a day in New York. And I could hear him downstairs, and my boobs would swell up, and I was just, oh my God, this is horrible. I'm not ready for childcare. I'm just not ready to do this. And I just said to Kim, I'm writing Sex in the City. I don't know why I've just written an entire fucking chapter about shoes. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's like I'm channeling Carrie Bradshaw, and I'm stuck in the fucking 90s, and I just had a massive meltdown. And I remember it was blistering heat in New York. I was wearing double denim. Important detail, I think. When walking, and while I'm out walking in New York having a meltdown, thunderous rain came down, which is why the double denim was relevant to the story. It's incredibly heavy and uncomfortable. I waded back to this flat and I buzz on the door, couldn't even bother to find my keys. And Chris is like, what? And I was like, I can't do it. I can't write books. I can't be a mum. I can't design skirts. I can't do any of it. And he was like, come upstairs. We got blind drunk, thrashed out everything. Literally went upstairs, deleted everything I'd written so far. I came up with Chris, that in there. He said, what if she does something like questionable? And I was like, she wanks on a train. Oh my God, she wanks on a fucking train. And then it was like the next day I had it and it was happening. But it was such a traumatic writing experience doing the cows. And even from the moment where I decided that she wanked on a train, it went through 1,000 different things before it became the end book. So when I came to do the book tour for it, by this point, I'm 7 months pregnant with Valentine. I've got art on 2.5-year-old on my own because Chris was filming in America, and it was trying to do all this and going around the country and like leaving him with my mother-in-law. It was just so stressful. But what made the whole thing amazing and what I wasn't expecting was the response to the cows. And when people started to read it, I was like, I don't know what happened to me during that process of writing that book. It was so stressful, but somehow, whatever energy that created in me, created that book, which ended up, I'm really proud of it. With So Lucky, you know, I've got my 2 kids now. I wasn't pregnant. I didn't have a terrible haircut. Also, arts in school, Val's in daycare. I've got my workspace. I get to my desk at 9:15 in the morning. I have to drop them off. If it's my day to pick them up, I leave at 4:45 because I can do after school clubs. Everything, I just had it sorted. And I just did a 9-to-5 job, and I just wrote, not to say that it was, you know, I didn't do lots of swearing and lots of drinking, but it was, I got my book written, and I love it. And the whole experience of it was just, okay, feel like I know what I'm doing now. And I also feel like in terms of writing, like I really found my feet. I know exactly who I am as a writer. And when you feel like that, and you feel that confident with a book, it's great that people are loving it, but it also kind of didn't matter as much because I wasn't so damaged after the experience of creating it. I had a good experience and I was proud of it. So entirely different.
Wow, I'm so glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
That is amazing, but it's also really refreshing to hear, because we all know that so much can change in 2 years or even a year.
Yeah.
We can just learn so much and things can feel so different. But you had so much on your plate that year.
So much. I mean, it's too much. And here's the thing, like, women can do everything and you can have it all, and you can also just be easy on yourselves, and you don't have to have it all and you don't have to do everything. And that's what I learned, is that I was so, before I had kids, I was such a martyr. I was like, this won't stop me. I'm never going to feel mother's guilt for going to work. This isn't going to hold me back. I'm going to do all this. And actually, I hadn't given myself room to just, like, imagine how much I loved my baby and how much, like, so much of me didn't care about that, just wanted to be with my baby. So I gave myself 6 months off when I did Val. When I had Valentine. I kind of felt like I did him, actually. Yeah, 6 months off. Didn't do anything work-wise, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Oh,
and yeah,
amazing.
I feel bad for Art because I was literally had him on the boob and was like, "Liz, please lend me money!" Like, it was so stressful. But I mean, it's all part of the story, isn't it? And now you look back on it, and I like love that. That's it. For Art was my little kind of office buddy for those few months.
Do you feel like novels give you a sense of a barrier there, just in general, because you're writing about a world that isn't, you know, you're not in the book?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought, I kind of had a dream of writing fiction, never thought I would do it until I was like old and retired, because writing, well, you know this because you've just made the shift yourself, but when you write non-fiction, it's quite safe because, well, it's scary to think you've got to fill a page with, you know, stuff you've totally made up in your head, but I actually love the freedom of it. I love that you can get away with whatever point you want to say and whatever you want to say to the world, no matter how controversial. You can do it in fiction. You can have those kind of discussions and say those things. You can have a
character who's really questionable and you're like...
But you can. And if someone wants to be angry with you for creating a controversial character, you get this with books a lot, then that's a ridiculous thing to say. Because if people don't create that story, create that argument, create that conversation, then we're all doomed. It's got to come out, and it's easy to do it in fiction. Yeah,
definitely. It's like when you're like asking for a friend
Yeah, exactly. Like
You're
writing
the friend.
fiction is one big asking for a friend.
A very close friend.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open it up to questions in a minute. So if you've got one, then get thinking. At the end of, and this isn't a spoiler, but on the very last page of the book, there's a page that says, "Who are you?"
Yes.
And there's a blank page. I think I know why that's there, but I just wondered.
Yeah,
why
I'm glad you said that because I kind of forgot that was there, and that was a last-minute addition. So the characters go through a lot, and they're kind of working themselves out throughout the book, and it ends with one of the characters. This is who I am. She kind of describes herself in a way that's incredibly liberating for her, and so. It just immediately after there's a page where it just says who are you ... with a page, and my fantasy is that you will all write it and post it, if you want to, because it's a really lovely thing to do, to write yourself down. It's incredibly satisfying. You learn a lot. You have to, how if you go for a job interview and they say, why should I give you the job? And you say all those obvious words, like I'm reliable and I work hard and, I don't smoke or whatever it is that you say. And none of that's all really generic, but actually to really think about who you are and what you are, and what you think, how you think people perceive you is a really nice exercise to do, so I encourage you to do it. And send it to me privately if you don't want to do it publicly.
Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, because it's very much kind of, sometimes your kind of internet self, whatever, it's not actually the real stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for writing this amazing book, because
You're so
it's such a joy to read, and it's hard. You said you were going to do another event, lots more, where you'll talk about what happens. I know you guys haven't all read it yet, but it's like a soap drama at the end.
If you have book clubs, it's a good book club book, because it's very juicy and there is a lot to discuss.
Yeah. It all comes out the woodwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how you do all of that, all of the plots that all tie up and everything.
It's a fluke every time.
No, not true. So has anyone got any questions? I actually don't know what time it is, but I feel like we've been speaking for half an hour, 35, 40 minutes. How long have we got?
20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Okay, great.
Oh my God, I'm really good at this. At timekeeping, I mean. So who has the first question? Do not be shy.
Yeah, go for it, go on.
There's one there. Is there a mic? Yeah. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
In terms of your process, do you start with characters, or do you have ideas for a plot?
This time, and largely, actually the cows I started with an idea, wanking on a train, and this one started with characters, and it's definitely the way that I will go forward. Because when you start with plot, I think you can stare at a blank page, because you know where you've got to get to, but you don't know who you're going to get to with. When you start with characters, you've always got something to write about. So to do that real, deep character work like I did this time, it just made the process so much easier. So yes, I'm evolving and changing as a writer. I feel I really found my stride with this. But my next book, I think, is the one where I'm going to be right, I have a process. Because I think I slightly worked it out here.
I love hearing about the actual stuff, though, because I feel like not everyone does have a process. It's all very in the back of the cab, drafting. Or
but also one of my favourite parts about writing books is when I've written something at the end of the day, I had no idea. I honestly, is there anyone here who hasn't read The Cows?
Wow.
Okay, one person, two people. So I'm not going to ruin it just for you. What happened to Cam 3/4 of the way through? I didn't know that was going to happen necessarily. I kind of thought it was, and we talked about it. I talked about it with my editor, and I was like, I think it's going to happen, and wrote it a few different ways, and wasn't quite sure. And then it was written one way that was just painfully cliche. And then, and it was going to be that way. It had been that way since I decided to do it. And then one day I just sat down and wrote it the way that it happened. So simple, just worked so much better. So I try not to lock myself into anything too much, because part of the thrill is that feeling.
Yeah. Love that. Should we go over this side? If anyone's got one over there? Yeah, down here. Thank you.
I can't wait to read the book, but what I really want to know is when you're going to have your Instagram makeup influencer channel, Dawn.
Oh my God. You'll be surprised to hear that I didn't get a brand deal. There was, I'm not going to lie, after the Oscars thing, there was a tiny part of me that thought, some brand's going to want to do a comedy influencer. No, none of them. But I really wanted to do more of those because but the thing is now I've said, I literally put makeup on the same way every single day. So I've kind of said it all. I'm going to have to try some new things. But oh God, I didn't know that was going to happen when I started that morning. I didn't know it was going to go there. I was like, oh, I'll get bored of this after I've done my eyeliner. And then suddenly there's a whole thing going on. That's amazing.
I'm surprised. I think someone should totally do that. They will. Although it wouldn't be the same.
Oh, it would. I would only ever work for a brand if they allowed me to be that ridiculous. Just in case there's any brands sitting in here. Totally
also, it works. I bought those tablets.
Oh, the Lumity ones.
They're amazing.
I think they might be.
Yeah, they
I don't get paid by them, by the way, but there's just these supplements.
Yeah.
They're so
but
expensive.
when you say things, I
think I hit 40, and I'm definitely that feminist that we were talking about before. Like, just grow up gracefully, don't care about it, and then I'm like. And I honestly, I think the fact that I boozed for 6 months when I turned 40 was one reason that this probably happened. But I can remember, like, what just happened? Like, literally almost overnight. Like, so many more wrinkles here around my mouth, got that kind of cat butt thing going on. And it's all kind of fine. And I'm not going to do anything about it in terms of I'm not going to get Botox, or I don't think. This is what everyone says when they're about 40 and then they get to 50 and they're like, but I don't think I'm going to do anything like that. But I'm up for, like, I'll spend the money on the cream and buy the supplements, definitely. And so I kind of think these supplements might work.
Yeah, they're great. Question there? Sorry to make you run around.
Hello, I haven't read it either. I'm waiting for Audible, so I'm an audio person. But I was just wondering.
It's so sexy in your ears, and it's my voice. You won't be able to look at me.
I'm looking forward to it. The Cows was great on Audible. I was just wondering if you have any favourite authors. So when we run out of your book, can we turn to people that you like to read?
Oh God, I'm so old school, and like I said, for the last couple of years, my reading material has been so low. I had to answer today who are my favourite authors, and it always comes down to the same 2 books, which is Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit and Jane Eyre, which I know they're probably really obvious choices, but they're obvious because they're just so brilliant. I can't recommend anything new. Got a book coming out next year, which is going to be fantastic. She wrote it before she had a deal, which is insane, and I don't know how you motivated yourself to do that. It's called Olive. So that. But I wish I had a better... And do you know what? Now my youngest is 2. My mission for the next year is to get my reading back again, so that when people ask me that question, I've got proper answers, because I really hate that I don't have that answer, because it should be... I should list off loads of people. Really disappointing, I do apologise. But always recommend books to me on Instagram, because I'm desperate for things. I had that book club, the Cold Water Book Club, that some of you might be a member of, and I loved it, but I had to stop because it was just too consuming. But I'm going to kick that off again in the new year. And I think when you listen to audiobooks, it's a lot easier to consume books. I'm listening to a really good one at the moment called Educated, about a woman who is homeschooled in America, which is really good if you've read that. But yeah, no, I can't really answer your question. Basically just mine.
Do you reckon you will bring the book club back, though?
I definitely will. Yeah. No, it's just, just motivation for me. It was really, really good.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
I don't remember when I did it. I don't know, Valentine must have been strangely sleeping for a period of time where I thought I could have a book club.
It's a really relatable answer, though, because I don't think everyone does have time to read. It's like a muscle that you need to actually make time for as well. Not everyone can.
You realise this when you write books. It's astonishing how many people in your life will never read it, because reading is hard for a lot of people. It's like finding that time is a real luxury, and it's a luxury that I want to put back into my life. And also, it should be part of my job. I've got this kind of idea that I'm going to say, like, Thursday mornings, I don't write, I read, and make it part of my job to get through stuff.
I bet you get sent a lot.
I get sent so many books, and it's something I know I can't complain about, but literally we have quite a small house, and it's piles of books. We're about to move, and Chris said something the other day about should we just get, like, a removal van for the books that you haven't read? Like, yeah, it's a lot, it's a problem. But it's such a lovely thing to receive, and whether you read them or not, being surrounded by books is just really lovely, isn't it? Like, I love them. I love them.
It's got a name, I think. There's an actual thing that's like books you'll never read, but you want to buy to make you feel good.
Oh, it just makes me feel really happy. Yeah. And I also am determined that one day, like 98% of them will get read. And like I used to just rip through them. Anyway, you will.
I was just wondering if you had advice for aspiring writers. So like when I read your first book, The Cows, well, obviously you've got the other ones before that, but it really inspired me to start writing. So would you have any advice?
I get asked this a lot, and honestly, the most important thing, that sounds so obvious, and it's just keep writing, because I think I don't know, you hear a lot of debut novel. That wasn't the case for me. I feel like I found my feet, like in writing, and I think you need to know what your identity as a writer and what it is that you write about and your style, and the only way that you can develop that is to just keep writing. And in terms of like getting stuff seen, I mean, I feel like now it's so different from even when I started. I remember sending a written treatment out to publishers for my first book years ago. You just don't do that anymore. Like, I don't know how that happens. I think people blog and build audiences and like, what? Come on, look at Emma. You started off, when I met you, you had a blog. And now you're like this kind of Uber interviewer with this huge podcast who writes books and has just done first. I think it's kind of getting, this is where I'm really rubbish, but you'd be good at like talking about building your brand and knowing who you are and what you want to say. It's just such a different journey for everybody, isn't it?
And I think for writers especially, there are so many outlets for you to share a blog post or an article, or it's like very kind of the playing field has been leveled, but it takes time to get that readership. But it's so good to say in a book proposal, I can offer you this, this and this already. People like my work already, even if it's a small amount.
That's it. It's having a body of work that, say, when you say that to the right person and they say, send it to me, that you've got something. Because a lot of people write to me and say, I really want to write, what should I do? And I said, well, send me something. They just haven't done the writing. So it's just, that's it. It's build up your body of work and be ready to give it to the right person. And I think there's just so much opportunity with building your brand online. And however that happens, I don't have the best advice, I'm sorry, but I think know who you are as a writer.
And not to be too cheesy, but I have followed Dawn for so many years, and people like you who, you can get inspiration from people's journeys and be like, oh, well, they just keep going. And actually, with each step and each book and each thing, something starts building. So I came to I was literally like at that, the Paper Aeroplanes book signing. It was like, I don't know how long ago that was now. I think I wrote that just before I got married, so was that 8 years ago? It's because when you read book, I feel that I want to go and write when I read a book, which is kind of what you've just said. I'll read a book and then I'll kind of it'll all come out, and there's something about that exercise is really nice.
There's absolutely no doubt, and that when you read, you are inspired to write, no doubt. And that's one thing that I struggled with The Cows, I think, because I wasn't reading anything at the time. So I was just output, and not putting anything back in. And I think that was why I wasn't cultivating any ideas and just felt kind of dead. So yeah, absorb and create. Yes.
How many more questions do we have time for, by the way?
10 minutes.
Great. Okay, great. One down here, and then we'll go to one over there, so I'm not ignoring you. Thanks.
I just wanted to congratulate you on one of the greatest detective stories we've ever seen, in your phone being nicked. So I thought I'd ask.
In the coat of many croissants.
Yeah, exactly. Coat of many croissants. I tried to find that coat, by the way, but it was so sold out.
Was it?
Yeah, I don't know who I don't know. Yeah, tried to buy it, couldn't. But I wanted to know if you'd found out anything new. And if your next novel is going to be a detective novel.
There'll definitely be some sort of mum detective in there. I was thinking like a kids book, of like the mum detective that's real badass.
But you were so brave to go to the building.
Yes. Oh my God, that whole thing. What did someone call her? Wagatha Christie. It's just so genius. That was just the weirdest thing. Oh God, that whole phone thing was wild. I I had
I just say that
kids
it felt
in the
like watching a
car.
horror film, but when you went to the building.
I know.
That's like
Give
watching
me
a thing
my
and saying,
phone!
never do that. And yet you were there outside the building.
What was terrible is that when the guy came out, and I knew him from the dog park, and he was like, Dawn, no one in here's got your phone. It's like, they're good people. It's like, the signal's a bit off. My Uber always stops up the road, and I was like, no, they've got my phone. Do you know that it still cost me, even though I've got insurance, $260 to get a new phone? And what's the point in insurance? I was so cross. But that it just kept moving around this kind of 20-foot radius. Anyway, awful. Great TV, though, wasn't it? Well, see, if they'd have edited that, it wouldn't have been so powerful.
See, that's your skill. We're hooked on Instagram stories, in the books.
And then the random pussy.
Yeah, oh my God, that's my favourite. Poor Lulu, I've totally objectified her.
How old is Lulu now? Like 500 years old?
Lulu's 16. I've had her for my entire adult life, and I'm so attached to her, even though I hate her because she's horrible to me. But I also love her more than I've ever loved anything in the world. I think I'm going to get her stuffed. When she dies, I think I need her sitting by the fireplace for the rest of my life. We've talked about it quite a lot. It's a weird thing, like I couldn't do it to Potato because he's got these doughy eyes, and he's just, also the thing about Potato is we call him the memory foam dog because he's just so, he's just so cuddly and so sweet. Like to stuff him would take away the main aspect of his personality, is that he's soft.
Also, Lulu's like so intense and
But just
kind
to
of...
be sitting like this, just judging me forever. So I think we're going to get
Wow.
I know. Honestly, we're counting the days. She's such a pain in our ass, but God, we love her so much. She's just...
Oh my God.
She loves a wee-wee on a pillow.
I hope to come round to your house one day and see that.
Yeah.
We'll go over here. Someone had a question, I think.
Do you have any further plans for another podcast series?
I'm doing one now because it's called So Lucky. It's going to start in November, and it's kind of a really lovely interview show talking about whether people think they, how luck has played in their life. So I've got Sarah Pascoe on it, and Matt Haig, and Giovanna Fletcher, and Angela Scanlon, and I'm going to do Busy Phillips. And some really good people. So yeah, I am.
So you've been interested in luck as a kind of thing for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept of luck is quite strange because when it comes to my career, I slightly resent it. People think I'm lucky because I feel like I've just been so relentless, and and something is presented to you in a lucky way, but whether you take that opportunity and how you follow it up, is that luck or is that like gumption? So I think I'm really lucky in my life, like to have 2 healthy, gorgeous boys and like a happy marriage, and but even that's work. It's not like that you just get that. It's that's being happy when you live with someone is like effort. So I kind of feel like the idea of luck is quite interesting because health is luck, really, but a lot of things are just hard graft, aren't they? It's just an interesting discussion, I think, about how people weigh up whether they think they're lucky or
It's a really interesting one. And I feel like no one will ever know their ratio of hard work, luck, privilege. It's like you could play with that your whole life and never really know what bit is what.
Exactly. Like people would say say Chris is very lucky to have achieved success. And what I see is a boy from a family who didn't have lots of money, the youngest of 5, from a tiny town in the west of Ireland, who is now, doing really well in Hollywood. I personally don't think that's luck, because I see how hard he works. So it's just, it's not that, we shouldn't really, if someone says you're so lucky, it's not an insult, but it's just quite an interesting chat.
Yeah. It's similar with you, that you were, I remember you saying when you grew up and you were like on this small island, being like, what's out there?
Yeah, what's beyond the sea? I was basically
I'm gonna go there.
That's actually my favourite thing I've ever said, and I'm going to roll with that.
I love this. I knew this would be fun. Do we have time for one more, do you think? I feel like I haven't really given the middle crew any... No question? Okay. Here's good. What about this? You here? Yeah, thanks. In the lovely orange.
I love that polo neck.
Thank you.
Hi, Dawn. A two-pronged question for me about TV. Could you see yourself writing a TV series?
Yes, that's what I really want to do. Yeah, I
That
feel
would
like
be
that's
amazing.
that's going to be the next move after I've written my 2 books for HarperCollins. Yeah, she's like, hi. Yeah, so much so. I feel like I'm. Yeah, I love writing. It's what I want to do full time. And I think to keep it interesting and all of that, you need to like mix it up. So script, definitely.
And well, Chris Evans has already bought the rights.
Yeah, Chris Evans is going to be my producer. Does anyone know if he's ever produced a movie? I feel like this isn't going to end well, is it?
The second part of my question is, will we ever see you on TV again?
I don't know. It's not. I'm totally open to an amazing idea coming my way. But I used to be coming up with ideas all the time and going pitching them. I'm not doing that anymore. But I kind of, it'd be fun if something comes along. But I generally get asked.
Take your Instagram stories.
Well, that's what I think. You know what I would love to do is find a way, and without ruining it, is just monetizing it, so I can do exactly what I do because it takes up 95% of my life. And I would do that as a job, and then I wouldn't need to do anything else in terms of TV. But it's that then the problem is that then you've got to do a brand thing, and then people get pissed off with you, which is really annoying because then you've said #ad once, and they're like, sell out! Oh, it used to be so cool. And then you're like, I've got to feed my kids. It's really simple. But God, if I could monetize Instagram, I would just be the happiest person in the world. The answer to your question is if the right idea comes along.
That's a great question. That's all we've got time for, I think. Dawn's going to be signing books.
I am.
On this table right here. And this has been so fun. Thank you
and thank you,
much
Emma.
for coming.
Thank you.